joining us for another episode in our series of empowering women in the month of January. I just got back from our very first event of the year in 2020 from Victoria, British Columbia in Canada. It's our Women of Iron experience, and it was amazing. There were so many breakthroughs, and there were so many outcomes of results, and that's really what we want. That event is specifically for entrepreneurial females that are seeking crystal clear clarity, and they really want to relinquish their power instead of leaking it out into the world so that they can have a massive impact. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for another amazing interview. And welcome back. I'm Dr. Hollen Meyer, along with Dr. Chelsea Rackham. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm excited. I always enjoy our time together. Dr. Rackham is a chiropractor at Retrieve Wellness in Dallas, Texas, and she has a really awesome program called Mothers Matter. And her genius, as we talk today in the space of empowering women, is in helping us navigate the stages of a woman's body through the hormone fluctuations and the cycles of life. And today, we're going to chat about the menstrual cycle and fertility awareness. But it might not be what you think. So hang tight as we navigate through this conversation of the crazy female hormones. Now, Dr. Rackham, as we get started, can you fill in the gaps for us and tell us a little bit about yourself and the Mothers Matter program? Then we'll dive into today's topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love the way that you worded that. I'm going to take some of that and use that when I tell people what I do.
Yes.
But yeah, in my practice, I help women in all, I help women in all phases of life. So from really the onset of puberty all the way up to perimenopause. But really my passion and kind of the bread and butter of my practice is helping women in the family planning stage and kind of that preconception area through to postpartum. And I'm highly specialized in working with postnatal depletion. I'm actually one of the only doctors in the world, as far as I know. I think there's only a few others that I've really come across that has really honed in on that postnatal depletion and postpartum time. So I kind of see it all, but working with moms is really my specialty.
Yeah, so you're empowering women on a daily basis, really.
Yeah, I do my best. I try.
And as a side note, one of the reasons I am really honored and blessed to bring her on is because part of my story and getting pregnant and conceiving has everything to do with her being my doctor. That was one of the big things that changed. The pace of my life shifted a little bit as well, but the main thing I changed was having you, Dr. Rackham, as my doctor. And so I'm really excited to have you along my entire journey. My pregnancy has been so healthy and so enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the fourth trimester as well, because that's so often forgotten. But now, as we dive into today's topic with talking about female hormones and the stages of life and really identifying fertility, what does that mean for you? And kind of give us kind of what are we going to talk about today? Is it specific to fertility or just knowing what's going on in our bodies?
Well, initially when I came up with Mothers Matter, it was a health program in my practice. And when I first came up with it, it was really designed to take a natural approach, kind of a physiological approach to breastfeeding. So making sure that the mother's body is working, all of the processes that are involved in breastfeeding are working optimally so that she has a good, strong, healthy supply for her baby. So it really, at the beginning was more about breastfeeding mothers, but it has evolved so much, and I only see that continuing to evolve. But now it's really about helping women know how to, know the importance of preparing their bodies for pregnancy, and then postpartum, helping them replenish themselves. And just as mothers, when we have our babies, you know, we have such a baby-centered society. So everything shifts towards the health of the baby. And, you know, our mindset, our instinctual drive is to take care of our babies. So we neglect our health. And then as a society, mother's health is also neglected. So Mothers Matter is really going to be a program that is based on kind of shifting that conversation from being so baby-centered to being mother and baby-centered, because they're really still one, really definitely for the first 3 months, for that fourth trimester. But for the first year, I would say mother and baby are really still one unit, and we should treat them as such. So I always tell people that the best way to you know, have healthy family units and make sure that everyone is healthy and doing as well as possible is to, you know, make sure the mother is doing as well as possible and her body is nourished after pregnancy. Because obviously pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, these are things that all require huge nutritional demands, metabolic demands, physical, neurological, emotional. So it's really easy for us to get depleted, and we just don't have the structure in place to replenish ourselves postpartum, and it's affecting our health, and it's affecting our whole family unit.
Exactly, the entire family unit. And especially whenever you're in those early years after pregnancy, but even well beyond that too, right? Like even through the stages of life of even to menopause, like your health affects your entire family. The female is usually the one that makes the health decisions for the family and which doctor you're going to see. They do a lot of the research involved, and not just the doctors, but the foods that they're feeding you, or what's being purchased at the grocery store. So it is important in order for us, because I said this on another interview, like we cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely.
So in regards to your expertise in this, at what point and how do you feel like women struggle the most in this area?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the struggle doesn't really become realized until after the baby is born, and probably at its peak, just from personal experience and also what I hear most commonly. Typically, it doesn't really kick in until about 2 to 3 months postpartum. Is, oh my gosh, I am not okay. You know, I've been running. I've been so focused on, you know, during the pregnancy, I was so focused on planning and making sure, you know, nurseries are set up and baby shower registries are made. And I'm sure you are going through that yourself
I'm
right
going
now.
through
There's
all
just
of
so
that
many
right
things that your
now.
brain is occupied with. Yeah. So really that 2 to 3 month point postpartum is when, you know, not the excitement has worn off, but the adrenaline from having the newborn has kind of worn off, and that fatigue starts to set in, and that lack of sleep and crazy schedule and just the monotony of the day to day really starts to set in around that 2 to 3 months. So, but I mean, it really starts pre-pregnancy when you first decide, you know, when you and your partner decide, I think we're ready to add a baby, either your first or, you know, a subsequent pregnancy. I think we're ready to add another baby to the family. The preparation really needs to start then. And that is my goal in changing the conversation is we need to educate women on the importance of preparing our bodies. You know, it takes 3 months for a follicle in your ovary to become a mature egg. So we need at least 3 months of preparation to make sure that we're getting the healthiest egg possible, and that our bodies are as healthy as possible to achieve that fertilization and obviously carry a pregnancy. So it starts then, but unfortunately it's not really talked about or realized until postpartum, and it's not too late at that point. There is hope.
It's not too late, but it makes the process of everything a little bit easier. I know the health of my pregnancy, the ease of my pregnancy so far, I'm about 6.5 months along. By the time this airs, I'll be closer to 7, but it's really been good. You know, I haven't really slowed down too much. I've listened to my body, but I just feel good. I feel healthy.
That's so amazing. I love hearing that. And I know that you did a lot of work beforehand, and that makes such a huge difference.
I did, and throughout the process, and I, talking to, now that I'm getting into all these mom groups, right, and kind of just preparing and listening to conversations,
Yeah.
I also hear a struggle that there's so much going on, they don't have time for themselves, you know, and
Mhm.
so do you have some tips on how women can gain, whether it's clarity or regain their power back instead of kind of leaking it and losing themselves in their children or in their relationships or whatever? So instead of leaking that power, how can they regain that to have not just influence over other people, but to just feel fulfilled internally from a nutritional standpoint to an emotional standpoint, a spiritual standpoint? What are some tips you have for us?
Oh man, this is such a big,
Yeah,
huge umbrella
it
of
is. But do you have some things that maybe we
information.
can implement like right now, some easy small things, and then maybe some tips on the types of doctors we should go see to start the investigation? Because I know it's truly an investigation process.
Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that it's such an underrated thing when it comes to health, and we usually don't tie these two things together. But having a good support system and finding a group of women that you can go and just basically say all of the things that you're feeling that that maybe you're afraid to say. I know that mothers tend to feel isolated, and I think one of the biggest reasons for that is because we have all of these thoughts that we can't help to feel, and we don't it doesn't have any bearing on who we are as mothers, but we have these thoughts of like, oh my gosh, did I make the wrong decision? Like, is being a mother really right for me? Or in my case, being a mother and being maternal doesn't really come natural for me because of my upbringing. And I never really had any sort of maternal guidance or, maternal love growing up. So how could I possibly expect myself to know how to just be the way I wanted to be when I had my
Hmm.
own baby? So that was a big part of my journey, was feeling empowered to just say how I was feeling and not, people might judge me or whatever, but getting that off my chest in especially, a smaller group setting where I know women have had the same thoughts that I have, and we're all wonderful mothers and we all love our babies. And that was honestly one of the things that just filled my cup to the absolute top because I knew that I wasn't alone. Um, so that is one thing that I would suggest. And finding that community can be tough, but they're definitely out there, and you just gotta, find your people or your person, because sometimes it just takes one.
Yeah.
Aside from that, hopefully, having a good support system, especially in those early days postpartum, that month or so postpartum, asking for help when it comes to meals and, cleaning the house. Like, a mother's job is not to feed everybody and have a clean house, especially in that first month postpartum. You just need to sit and take care of your baby and bond with your baby and focus on breastfeeding if you choose to, and just heal your body. So definitely do that. And then nutritionally, eating a lot of healthy fats and nuts and seeds and a lot of omega-3s. And I did a lot of oatmeal, gluten-free, made sure it was gluten-free, oatmeal postpartum, and things that are just calorie dense, but nutritionally dense and nourishing. Bone broth is another really good one.
That's a great one.
But yeah, just making sure that you're eating consistently and eating things that are just really replenishing for your body.
Those are awesome tips. I know for me, I don't know, lucky for me, but my poor husband, I'm not very domestic, like in the first place.
Well,
So,
that's good. Expectations are low.
the expectations are low. That's right. So I already have help with that. So I'm very grateful on that end that that's not an expectation that I feel like I have to fulfill. And just having those conversations with your partner too,
Yeah.
and just like things are going to be different in the first few
Yes.
months, and who knows what life is going to be like
Yes.
after that if it's your first. But I think those are really awesome tips. Um, can you share with us maybe a personal story of how you've struggled, um, whether it was, I don't know if you struggled getting pregnant, I don't know that about you, but, or postpartum. I know you touched a little bit on your maternal instincts,
Yeah.
or what you thought that they might be like. But what's a personal struggle that maybe a lot of us can relate to for you?
Well, I had a surprise pregnancy. So we were not planning on having a baby soon. That was about 5 or 6 years down the road for me. I was all about my career and my relationship with my now husband. And, we were in a bit of that, just kind of a selfish mindset, as most people are in their 20s. So it was a big surprise. So obviously that changed everything. That changed my whole approach to my career. And I really went through, after my daughter was born, I never thought I would be a stay-at-home mom. I never thought that I would really, I don't know, I guess I just never really thought about that before, but I was
Right,
all
yeah.
about my career. And then after my daughter was born, I went through a huge identity crisis because I wanted to be home with my baby, and I also wanted to be at work in my practice and helping people and doing what I loved. And I just completely lost myself that first year, really that first 18 months. I struggled with anxiety. I struggled with depression, and I didn't even know that it was depression until I came out of it. For me, my mom had really debilitating postpartum depression, and she left our family when I was 6 months old. So that was kind of my example of what not to be. But there's a lot of varying degrees of postpartum depression. I thought that if I didn't want to leave my baby and my husband and my family, that I was doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But it turns out that wasn't really the case. And I really, really struggled. And when I pulled myself out of that and kind of looking back at it, I just have so much compassion for myself, because I tried so hard. And, I've done this incredible thing where I've broken a generational cycle that's kind of been passed down through my family, generation after generation. And, it's still hard. Like I said, being needed a lot doesn't really come natural for me. And man, I love that kid with everything that I have inside of me. But the patience and being empathetic and helping her with her big emotions, that doesn't really come naturally for me. But I just, show up every day, and every day is a new day to keep trying. And I'm reparenting myself while trying to parent her. And yeah, it's a struggle, but it's been a really amazing growth process for me.
So in the 18 months that was where you lost yourself, and it was just really difficult trying to navigate this new life of yours, but also this new life that you're responsible for. What
Yeah.
advice would you give someone looking back, whenever they're having their first kid? Of course, nobody knows what to really expect. What advice would you give somebody that maybe they wouldn't lose themselves completely? Maybe, I know at some point you just get lost in the new life, but still, what advice
Yeah.
would you give someone?
I think it's really important to communicate with your partner and be okay with delegating some of their responsibility. I know that I really struggled. I felt like I had to do it all. And anytime I would take any sort of break, I felt guilty. And that was just one of those things that I had to learn to accept, that I also need a break, and that my husband is fully capable and willing and there to, take over if and when I need a break. So having that communication with your partner is just one of the biggest things.
Awesome. I hear that a lot. Communication with your partner, and you don't have to be a superhero. Like, right off the
Yes,
bat, you don't have to
yes.
be everything to everyone.
Absolutely.
And do you have any, as we wrap things up, do you have any final thoughts or affirmations or a quote that you'd like to share with us to empower the women that are listening today?
Oh my goodness. You matter too. Mothers matter too. And I know that's the title of, my whole workshop, my whole thing. But like I said, we're just in such a baby-centered society, and mothers are just completely in the background, and your health matters, and your emotions matter, and your thoughts matter, and you're not alone.
I love that. And thank you so much for being the voice for so many women. And it's so empowering for women that are about to go through this and don't know what to expect. I can speak to that. But even for the women that have been there and done that and kind of on the other side of things, even if they're 50 and 60 years old, they hear you say mothers matter, and they can still relate to that as well, because you don't lose that title.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't lose that title. And so thank you so much for dropping in on us today and dropping that information. How can people get in contact with you, Dr. Rackham?
I am on Facebook and Instagram at Retrieve Wellness, and all my contact info, my phone number, email is on both of those pages.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to put those links in the comments, as well as your website. And do you have a way that they can get in touch with you about the Mothers Matter program?
Yes, you can call or text the office. The number is 972-587-7541. Just shoot me a message and we can chat.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And to all the listeners today, thank you all for joining us today for another interview so that we can continue to empower you. Thanks for joining us, and stay classy, folks. Oh my God. That's not for another episode to empower women. My button's gonna pop. Crazy. Seriously. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Empowering Women. They are starting to peek out. Ah! Oh dear.